talk about my grandfather. In World War II, he fought the Nazis, and he would often say, you can't complain unless you're having a hard day. And a hard day is when you're running away from the Nazis while they're shooting at you in the snow. And then he would say, with his flavor, Greek Serbian demeanor, he would say, and I got shot in the leg and I still ran for 6 miles. So what's your excuse?
The author of the #1 best-selling book, Forged by Fire, Miss Mila Grigg.
The number one reason why I watch people get fired, number one reason is a lack of EI.
All right, guys, today's guest is an author, a speaker, a mum, and is an expert in the field of personal branding. With over 20 years working in the space of personal branding, this woman has not only read and talked about every single thing in the space, but she's actually done it through her own trial and error. Having worked with people from all different industries, such as professional athletes, people in the music industry, entertainers, and a range of businesses in the area of branding and marketing, she has developed a unique set of skills to be able to elevate any brand and help them stand out among the rest. So please help me welcome the woman who went from working in NASCAR in her 20s to now the author of the #1 best-selling book, Forged by Fire, How to Develop an Unstoppable Brand, my friend from Nashville, Miss Mila Grigg.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I'm super excited to talk to you as well, because personal branding is one of my favorite subjects, because I think because it's done so much for me in the past. Like, I've been so focused on personal branding for years now. And I saw, like, as I was reading a bit about your stuff, you're like, it's a buzzword now, personal branding. And you've been doing it for like 20 years. And I agree, like, now it's a bit of a buzzword. And I've been focused on personal branding for like 5, 6, 7 years. Talk to us. Why is personal branding, in your opinion, so important for people to have right now?
Yeah, I think the world is moving so fast, and it's only moving faster. You know, with the AI coming in at warp speed, it's hard to know what's real and what's not anymore. So at some point, it's the only thing that separates you. And the word personal brand, you know, so many people think that it's fluff and that it's something that isn't real, and we're creating or marketing something that's fake. But truly, if people know you and know your story, know your value, it's really hard to beat, and it's the only thing that's real and tangible anymore. It's hard to cover up authenticity, and that's a word that everyone uses, and it's so overused, but it's true. So it's truly your only differentiator. Your own story is what makes you special and what makes you different, and that's what's going to matter going forward when we try to look at the world of fake and understand what's real or what's not real.
Do you think it's something that, like, everybody should be focusing on?
Every single person should be focusing on it. Yeah. Or you miss opportunities left and right for friendship, for work, for money, for, you know, being able to run a division in a corporation. If you're not focused on sharing who you are, you miss so many opportunities in life. Yeah.
See, like, I've literally told so many people that I literally say to them, if you've got no idea what you want to do right now, start building a personal brand. Because, like, we were just talking about before we started the show, it's like, you never know what you want to do in a few years. And I'm talking about when I write a book and I want to launch a book and all these sorts of things. And because I've been building my personal brand for so long, it's going to be not easy, but easier to launch a book off the back of a personal brand than what it would be if I was to just pull an idea out of my head. And then I have to start marketing myself. So I tell people to start building a personal brand now, because you never know. You've got no idea what you're going to want to do in like 5 years. And if you've got this audience that know, like, and trust you, then it's going to be a lot simpler to launch a product, start a business, launch a coaching or whatever it is you're going to want to do. So for the people that are, either starting out personal branding right now, or maybe they've got an Instagram and they post pictures of their dog and whatever they do, or they're posting things of their business and stuff. What are some key elements? What are some key things that they've got to be focusing on so they can separate themselves from the rest?
Yeah, it's such a good question, because so many people post just to post, right? The idea is that you're posting understanding your core values. So if you're in the business world in particular, whatever it is that you're doing, your core values really matter. And it's the least sexiest part of personal branding. Clients hate it. You know, what are your core values? And we need to figure out what those are. And it's where they want like leadership coaching, communication, and what do I post on social? And I'm going, all that is fine and good. And I love it. And we talk about it, but first, your core values matter so that everything that you post somehow represents who you are in every post, whether it's a picture of your dog or, a picture of a book that you're reading, a picture of a vacation that you went on. It really needs to represent where you are and who you are. And without those core values to guide, you just kind of look like a paint splatter. It doesn't make any sense and there isn't direction. And then the other piece of that is developing stories out of those core values. So many entrepreneurs, and any kind of executive, really, at any level, when we start working together, I'll say, what are your stories? Tell me about yourself. And so many people will say, I don't know what my stories are. And if they do have stories, the second part of that is, why do they even matter? So first step is core values. And the second step is developing stories that represent those core values. You don't want to walk into a situation and be like, I'm the smartest person in the room. But if you have stories that aren't silly or cheesy, and you're able to actually show that in a way that looks like you're just sharing a part of a story, and you weave it in beautifully and naturally, people are going, okay, I guess you are intelligent, but you're not telling them, but you're telling them. So really, core values first, storytelling next, are probably the two top things that we would talk about for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So how does somebody determine their core values of their brand? Are they the same as their core values as a human? Or is the brand different in who they are? Or can you explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we work with people, I've done this for years. In the beginning, I'll be honest, I had no idea if I was doing this correctly or not. I mean, I really just did trial and error, really. At core values, if you Google core values or brand values, I mean, there are tons of sheets on images that will pop up. They're just adjectives. But when you really think about who you are, especially if you've been through things in your life, I often find that people who have been through trials in life are able to more succinctly determine their core values, because they've been through a fire, they've been through a trial, and so they've been tested and they know who they are. So when you pick words and you go, well, I'm really intelligent. Well, are you really? Is that your core value? Are you intelligent? You have to find words on the sheet. So I would say, like, one of my core values is hard work. Another one is faith. That's sort of foundational to everything that I do, probably the top one. And then integrity to me really matters. Most people want to choose integrity. Most banks choose it. Every bank in the world probably has that as one of their core values. Very few people and very few institutions actually live up to that core value. I chose it because I lived through something excruciating, because someone close to me had had a breach of integrity. So for me, I understand what having a lack of or a breach of integrity does to everyone around them. And that's a big deal when you choose a core value for a reason versus just, I think this is who I am. I'm really fun, or I'm really X. Another reason that you want your core values and how you pick them is you try to listen to how people describe you. I'll never forget a young woman. We had a room full of people and everyone described everybody else. Long story short, one of the words that was used often for her was bubbly, a word that is what it is. And I thought, well, she'll enjoy that because she is quite bubbly. She hated it. She was so mad. She ended up standing up and she slammed her fist on the desk and she said, damn it, I am determined and I'm smart and I'm hardworking. And it's not the word I want people to associate with me. Which is why we come to find out later she wasn't getting a raise because she wasn't the leader they needed, all the things. So she worked on that. So really, core values help you to know what people are thinking about you, like how people describe you. How would people describe you in 3 to 5 keywords? And then how would you describe yourself? And are there any discrepancies between the two? Is a really great yet sometimes painful exercise, but it's a necessary one so you know what people really think.
Cool. So developing these, becoming aware of these, and having that sort of lead your brand. Like, so how does somebody, how do you show your core values through a brand? Like I'm sure people are thinking logos, colors, all these sorts of things. So how do we how do we show the people what we actually stand for, what we value through branding?
Yeah, I mean, as you think about, if you're a business and you're on LinkedIn, or you're, an executive on LinkedIn, even through Instagram, the idea is that you want to share core value. For instance, I have a really low tolerance for someone who doesn't want to work really hard. I'm just like, how do you not want to work hard? Like, what is it? You want $1 million, but you want to work for 5 minutes? I don't get it. Unless you're really good and you're worth the 5 minutes and it's $1 million, then I'll give you the million for the 5 minutes if you're worth it. But most people don't want to work hard, and I'm just going, you really have to. And I will share stories about myself throughout a conversation, throughout a year, that sort of tell people this is my core value. This is where I'm at. This is what I think, so that they can start to understand where I'm coming from. The same thing with everybody. You have to be able to share these stories in a way where people go, I get it. I get who you are. So the storytelling piece is not to be missed. I would say it's the most important piece. I often talk about my grandfather in World War II. He fought the Nazis, and he would often say, a hard day, you can't complain unless you're having a hard day. And a hard day is when you're running away from the Nazis while they're shooting at you in the snow. And then he would say, with his flavor, Greek Serbian demeanor, he would say, and I got shot in the leg and I still ran for 6 miles. So what's your excuse? So, you get to share these stories with people at different times with the right tone and the right way. And you know what they need to hear, all the things, but you have to share the story so that they understand where you're coming from, but in a non-confrontational way, just so you can share your heart and share where you are.
Mm. What
I
are
hope that helped a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So what about when we're thinking about like authority brand? Okay. And I know even if people aren't aware of what this is, there's a reason why they probably they buy one brand. Like if they're shopping for coffee, there's probably a reason why they pick one type of coffee off the shelf and not another, because one that stands out. They've got more authority, because it's my understanding of branding is it speaks to people's unconscious minds. Like, do we trust this brand unconsciously? And we'll do business with brands that we trust. So what are some key elements that people can do to establish authority through their brand image, so people have that feeling of being like, there's just something about them. I just trust this brand. I like them. What are some key elements?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've done it really well, right? It's consistency and message. I mean, you've nailed this. And so it's consistency of message, but I think the other piece of that is people can trust you and not like you. Not everyone's meant to like you, right? So the idea is that you continuously share the story, you share value, you share yourself every once in a while when it's appropriate, so you're not overselling. But a good brand is one that really truly shares a value where people keep coming back. Like, I go to your podcast because I want to learn what you and others have to say. I mean, what you've done is created authority. I trust you. But a lot of people get caught up in the like part of that question. At the end of the day, that's not going to happen. Not everyone's going to like you. Not everyone will like your story. Not everyone will like how direct someone is, or whatever it might be. So developing an authority brand is one. You have to speak from experience, not opinion. In my world, that's how I roll. And then the second piece of that is you continuously have to share pieces of your story in a way that's not selling, but share value with everything that you do. Every post almost has to have some value, and then other posts have some personality in it, but definitely value posts. I'd say 80-20, value to sharing personality, for sure.
Do they need to be across like all social media platforms? Is that important?
It is important, but I mean, I think it's more important too to know your audience as well and know why they're coming to you on different platforms, for sure. I mean, obviously on LinkedIn, where I thrive, obviously that's the business that I have. They're not coming to me for pictures of vacation, but on Facebook still, which is still kicking, and on Instagram and TikTok, I like to show more pieces of my personality. So it's a real pick and choose thing, and I think every single business, in particular business owner, entrepreneur, needs to think about that people work with people that they like. People trust companies where the senior leadership of any company, entrepreneurship or business, large company, Fortune company, Inc., whatever it is, when senior leadership is on social in some way, shape, or form, they tend to trust them, and studies will show up to 60% more. Some will say as low as 20%, but they always trust more. So there are CEOs like Hal Lawton, the CEO of Tractor Supply, does this well. He's on LinkedIn, he's talking to his people, talking to his communities. It's a beautiful thing. So there are CEOs that are doing this really, really well, and their companies are doing extraordinarily well. And Tractor's had a banner year. So I think you follow where the success goes and see what they've done.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned consistency, right? So I'm thinking literally my podcast right now. I think we just ticked over 200 episodes. If I'm a stranger, I come to my podcast, I would see that, and just this sheer like 200 episodes, I would think, oh, this is someone who's consistent. I trust this brand. They've been around for a while. How about for people, and same as like Instagram, right? Like follow account, even the blue tick, like as stupid as it sounds, like these are things when I look at brands and I see, oh, they've got 100K following. They have a blue tick. They're obviously someone, even if they've paid to get it, they're obviously someone who's actually focused enough on building their brand image that they've got it anyway. I develop more.
Yeah.
And I think, well, who's this person? And I want to snoop a little bit more. So without the obvious things like numbers, okay, numbers and metrics, like been in the game for a long time, their followers, their downloads on the podcast and all these sorts of things. For the people that are just starting out, what are some main things they could do to establish high brand authority quickly, even if they don't have many runs on the board?
Love that question. I think the biggest thing you can do is co-brand up. So if you're a big I'm a big nobody, right? Like I'm trying to be someone where I'm still working as hard as I can. The idea is that I co-brand up. So if I quote a study, it's from a really important university. If I quote a book, it's from a brand that I want people to associate with me. And the other piece of that, especially when you're on social, is engagement. Where the world is full of narcissistic posters, right? So when you're on social in particular, the engagement piece is more important than the follower piece. I'm a big fan of Gary Vee. I don't know if you like him. People typically love him or hate him. You might be his best friend, who knows? But at the end of the day, I would venture to say he's perfectly right when it comes to that. And I'd surrender to the idea that engagement matters more than anything else, for sure.
Mm. So co-branding, can you talk in a little bit more about that? Because I was just thinking, I was like, well, what would be the most important thing for me? Because as soon as if I've come across nobodies, but if I see them associated with people that I do trust, by association, I'm like, oh, they must be someone good too. Because if it's good for them, it's good for me probably too. Is that kind of what you're meaning? Like getting amongst like celebrity status, or not so much that, but like people that already is there a way that you can sort of borrow other people's branding credibility? Can you talk a little bit more into that? What's up, Dream Nation? Have you ever wondered how far ahead your life would have already been if you had got access to this type of content at a younger age? Look, this is why I need your help. I'm trying to build the #1 personal development platform out there to teach you guys the tips, tricks, and attitude of what it takes to live your dream life, and to bring the type of education that we all wish we had in school. This show only grows by word of mouth and new subscribers, so it would mean the world to me if you could smash that subscribe button right now, leave us a 5-star written review, or drop a comment below and share this episode with a friend. I would be forever grateful. All right, now let's get back into this episode.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if I want to be known for leadership, I'll borrow, John Maxwell's quotes, books, posts, videos, vlogs, whatever he's got. And if I agree with what he said, I repost and then talk about why I like it. And then in hopes that, he'll repost, or he'll like, or he'll comment, and he'll engage, so people can see that back and forth. I think that's one of the biggest things that people don't do because they're just so stinking afraid that people won't like them. So you really need to just jump out of your comfort zone. I read books like crazy, and some I read over and over again. Ray Dalio wrote Principles. It's, one of the largest hedge funds in the world. He's just changed leadership over. But Ray Dalio is, in the financial world, someone that I adore and I want to be associated with. So when I post things about him, talk about him, I know that I'm going after a certain client. I know that they need to associate me with someone of his caliber. I know that they need to see that I understand what he understands. And so they can quickly go, I get it. I get it. You understand what he does. You understand what he's marketing. You get how that company works to a degree. You're going to understand our bank or whatever it is I'm going for if I'm chasing an elephant client. And then they'll quickly go, I got it. You understand it. And you understand brand. Do you understand the company? Do you understand the industry? Perfect. So I'm pretty intentional. If I'm chasing a client, or I know that I'm going after a certain industry, if I'm going after one executive, I'll be really, really intentional about what I'm posting so that they can see it and understand that I understand as fast as they can by using people's brands that they know and get.
Yeah, cool. So you've been in the industry for about 20 years, right? Branding, marketing, all these sorts of things. How have you seen branding and personal branding specifically evolve over the years? Has it evolved, or is it still the exact same as what it was 20 years ago?
So it's such a good question. The piece of you telling your story and storytelling hasn't changed at all, but how you do it has. So I think the people that were left behind in COVID, in particular, during that time, were left behind because they weren't online. There are a lot of intelligent, amazing people who are skipped over for opportunities every single day because they can't simply walk down the hallway and have a moment with the CEO or COO of their company if that's what they want, or they can't walk down the street or call the investor that they need for whatever they're trying to build or grow. The idea is that now social is taking it to a level where a lot of people just don't want to do that. They don't want to take the time. They don't see it's worth it. So building your personal brand is the same. It's communication, it's emotional intelligence, self-awareness. Are you a leader? What kind of leader are you? Are you positional? Does everyone follow you because they need to or because they want to? All of that's the same, but now how you share that story has flipped on its head. And most people just aren't there yet and they don't want to be a part of it. So they're getting left behind every day. And people who are less qualified and less experienced are winning because they've done such an exquisite job of sharing their value. And that's the biggest piece. You know, if you don't want to jump on line, if you don't know what AI is, if you don't know how it will affect you, whether you work for someone or you own something, you know, failure is certainly imminent. And that's the hardest piece.
Which one is more important to you, Coca Cola or Pepsi?
Coke.
Why? Why do you think Coca Cola dominates over Pepsi? Because it comes down to branding, right? So what do they do differently? I think anyone who would have been listening to also would have been like, well, Coca Cola. I didn't say what they like more, but the first one that comes to mind, even soft drink, you know, is Coca Cola. So what do they do differently?
Polar bears and Santa Claus. That's how you feel.
Polar bear. Explain that. Polar bears and Santa Claus.
Coke, you know, their big ads are, you know, they have polar bears in them for years, Santa Claus in them for years. They haven't really changed anything, you know, it's simple. And for different, it's really interesting here in the States, depending on where you're raised, you're going to say one or the other too. It's the wildest thing. So growing up in California, it's a Coke and it's a Coke, it's a Coke. When I see people drinking Pepsi, I often wonder why they're doing that. There's such a better option. But their branding over the years has been great. I mean, Santa Claus ads when I was little, I'm a Generation X. You were just loyal to the brand and it caught you when you were little and now you're loyal forever. I mean, those old ads will keep you going for years if done well.
So you said, so it's how you feel. Okay. So I can't actually remember because I don't watch TV at all, but I do remember the Coca-Cola with the polar bear. I remember them. I remember Coca-Cola with like summer vibes, you know, like beaches, surfing, all those sorts of things. So the Santa Claus, so I'm assuming it's like with Christmas. So you mentioned it's how you feel. So are they using these symbols, these icons to associate you with times that feel good, special, or what do you mean by that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, you know as well as I, the best brands in the world care about how you feel, right? I mean, it's a personal brand too. Either you're going to like someone or you don't. That's so hard. It's a feeling. It's that initial, or, ooh, I'm interested, right? And they have just done such a great job over the years, like you said, with the symbols that create heartfelt moments of things that typically make people feel good and feel warm and fuzzy on the inside. And it builds a loyalty that Pepsi is a very cold brand. Coke is a very warm and fuzzy brand, especially depending upon location and generation. And it hasn't stopped going since.
So what if you were head of branding and marketing for Pepsi, what would you do differently to help them stand out more now?
God, that's such a great question. So I have read all the studies between the two, and it's so crazy. I don't know if you're asking because you've seen like any blogs on this, but this is the best question ever. The idea that they're a cold brand works for them. So I think initially, I mean, I'm a big numbers and data person, so that's initially what I would do. Like, where are we winning? Where are we losing? Why do you think we are? And then I would understand if their branders understood branding still. I mean, the history of the duel of the battle between these two brands it's iconic and it goes back years. So I think the first piece of it is, how are we doing in the market? I don't know those numbers. They might be doing really well and their brand might be winning with the coldness, just depending upon, again, where they are and factors that I'm not aware of. So I think first numbers, data, sales, why, where they are, and then to understand what their goals are in different markets and where they're selling in different markets. And then, the biggest thing is, what are you doing to create consistent messaging with consumers? And are you a content marketer or a context marketer? Coke does a really good job of getting to context and to people in different ways with different stories and hitting the man, the woman, however old you are, kids. It has the stories kind of hit everyone and it weaves together. I guess the biggest piece of that, without knowing the data, would be, is Pepsi really doing context marketing and can they win? I hope that helps a little bit.
It's just also interesting. I'm really liking this the topic of branding at the moment. I'm just really fascinated on it. So you've just talked about Coca Cola and Pepsi, which would be a company brand. Now,
Yeah.
let's talk about, so how does one, so let's say building a personal brand. Let's talk about like a Steve Jobs and Apple, or Elon Musk and Tesla.
Love it.
Can we talk? Can you talk into that? Because obviously, like Elon Musk would be the personal brand. Tesla is a company brand. If someone's out there individually building their own status and their own brand and simultaneously building a company, what do they do about that? Is it the same thing? Is it the same values, the same story, or are they two different separate entities? Or how do we sort of navigate building a company brand and also your personal brand at the same time?
Yeah, that's great. So as an entrepreneur who owns a business, you have to think about both. And of course, they're going across. I mean, you can't build a company that you don't believe in, who have consistent core value moments, right? I mean, you just can't. Most companies are built on the brand of founders. Where they go wrong and where they shut down after a while is that they haven't communicated that brand and that why and that history and that legacy, and that emotional connection with employees as they grow. So most entrepreneurial firms, no matter how successful they get, at some point have to go, wait a minute, we have to tell everyone why we do what we do. And we have to get buy-in so that everyone's brand can uplift and surrender to the corporate brand, but then build their personal brands so that everybody rises at the same time. So companies that have employees that build their brands and build their stories and connect with more consumers and to each other even more, it never fails that the company brand starts to rise. That's why banks and law firms are doing everything that they can right now to say, hey, I need you to put your personal brand out there as well and share the stories of not only yourself, but the company. So those two things are this, they have to be the same. I mean, there are companies, I mean, they're like the best stories ever are from companies like Zappos, where they bring people on to their brand, they onboard them. You may have heard the story. And then if people don't like what they see, or if they don't like what they're hearing or feeling when it comes to their brand values and core values and who they are, they gave them $5,000 to leave. So they'll train you and they'll pay you to come to training. And if you don't like it and you're not buying into who they are, then they say, okay, see you later, because they need a culture that's led by the same core values and same vision. So an entrepreneur typically who starts a company will have to have some of those crossover moments. Does the brand grow from there? Sure. But they do need to cross-pollinate, absolutely. And it's not just the entrepreneur brand, but like an Elon, you said it so beautifully and succinctly when you started this. A great brand like Elon can sell tequila, and it can sell cars, and it can go to the moon. And then if it wants to sell mattresses, it can. You can pivot, which is a word, again, so overused, but and do whatever you want. Once you build a strong brand, people don't buy products, they buy people. And that will never end, which is why every employee of every company, entrepreneurially or not, needs to start building brand, and companies should start investing in that. And they have over the past 7 years. It's more demand for that than ever.
Yeah, cool. So what are some things that you're seeing that people are getting wrong right now while building their personal brand, and what do they do about it?
Yeah, I think the self-evaluation is the hardest part, for sure. You know, people will often say I'm a great leader, and I'm like, you're not, your team hates you. Or, you know, I have a high level of emotional intelligence, and I'm going, yeah, there's a study from Stanford, I think it was, and I'll have to look back. It's in the book, but you know, that I think it's 10% of people actually have EI and 90% of people think they do, but they don't. Emotional intelligence is a big piece of that. Storytelling is probably the worst thing that people do most of the time because they don't have EI. You know, so they're like, oh, I got stories. Let me tell you my stories. And then I'm going, well, now you're over talking. You can't read a room. You can't tell that Fred is bored and Sue is pissed and Mike is in a happy mood and he doesn't want to hear your stuff. So, you know, personal brand is as much about you as it is about growing those things that help you to see where other people are as well. So I'd say those are probably the biggest, the top three on building a brand. I mean, there are different things in a brand. Like I said earlier, the communication, the image, the social media, but the emotional intelligence part, that's probably where people get it wrong the most. And that's probably, I would say, if I had to pinpoint it, the number one reason why I watch people get fired and why I watch people not get more money or promotion, either laterally or financially. Number one reason is a lack of EI. It's the saddest thing in the world. And people who deserve it don't get it because they don't have it. and they don't know it's a muscle that they can actually grow. So that would probably be it. Hopefully that helped a little bit.
Yeah. How can someone develop their emotional intelligence better?
Read a book. EI 2.0 is a great book. It gets you started. And then through that book, and then Emotional Intelligence by a guy named Daniel Goleman. I recommend these in my book. I mean, these are the two books you should read. EI 2.0 is easy. Then it allows you to do an assessment at the end of the book. So a lot of people are like, hey, it's all about me. It's all about me. And that's how the world is right now. And that's fine. But having EI so that you can read a room, read a person, read a twitch of an eye. Like this whole time, I'm trying to read you this whole time. I'm like talking, praying, and watching you for like any sign that I can that you're liking it, not liking it. And like part of it, I'm like, okay, he's in. And the other part, I'm like, ooh, I don't know if you like that. I'm trying to read and discern and like look you up beforehand and try to find things to connect with. So that's the piece of this that most people aren't doing, that self-awareness piece. So you have to read a book, do the assessments, and then one of the hardest pieces ever, I mean, truly ever. And if you're married or have a partner in life, asking them what they really think, or giving, like, say, hey, what's 3 to 5 words that you would use to describe me? Ugly or good? And then getting that feedback is one of the best things that you can do. Many people think that they're killing it, and behind the scenes, they are not killing it. And I get to hear that all the time. Executives are like, my team loves me. I'm like, no, they don't. They really don't. They actually can't stand you, but we're going to fix it. It's going to be fine. Everybody has value. We're going to find what we need to do. But that's probably the biggest one.
Yeah. Cool. This has been great. Hey, what's one thing if you could, one thing you had to leave the world with when it came to personal branding, what would it be?
You have a purpose. You were born with a purpose and created with immense value. Many times people don't actually believe that now. And when they start losing in life, or they perceive they start losing, they put all of their eggs into the I'm not worthy basket. Every single human being was created with a purpose. And I know that's probably one of the fluffiest messages. But when I work with executives, whoever it is at any level, the ones that know they have a purpose and know that they have innate value and a gift that nobody else has. Like, you have a gift that no one in this world has. You were given this gift. Once you find it and hone it, that helps you to really breathe your purpose in a way that you couldn't have before. And so many in this world have lost hope. Don't lose hope. You have great purpose. Find it. Don't ever forget that you were born for a reason with great purpose and a gift.
I love it. Mila, this has been fun. This has been great. And there's been so much value in here around branding and everything. Where can everybody follow you on social media and get your book?
Awesome. You know what? You can just follow, you can go to the website and it's all there, modaimageconsulting.com. And I'm all over social. So you'll find me, Mila Grigg, anywhere you go. Thank you so much. I loved being on.
I love it. You're very welcome. So I've got one final question for you. Are you ready?
Yes.
If you were to go back to your 18-year-old self and give her 30 seconds of advice, what would it be?
You need to know who the Lord is. Personal question. I had to answer it that way. Without Jesus, you're going to be lost and make like some of the worst decisions you'll ever make. But with him, you're going to be found, and it's going to be great.
Thank you so much for listening. And if you got value from this episode, it goes such a long way. If you can just take 20 seconds of your time, leave me a 5-star rating and written review, then screenshot this episode and share it to your story. And make sure you tag me for that shout out. And until next time, guys, go out there and dream out loud.